Good evening. Welcome to From the AD's View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown, and today's guest is Dr. Hayden Coombs.
Hey, great to be here, Doc.
Hey, Dr. Coombs, how are you, sir?
I'm doing
S-
great.
So, we have a few topics to talk about, right? One, what do you think about sport management, Dr. Coombs?
I think sports management is one of the fastest growing fields right now, and it's something that's really exciting for our young students to be getting involved with.
Yes, sir. A sports information director. What's that all about, Doc?
You're the man behind the scenes, keeping stats, making sure things are going, making sure you have answers for everyone's problems.
Right, right. And then last but not least, we have the AFC NFC Championship Sunday. How exciting is that, Doc?
Oh man, my whole life, all I've seen is the Lions just being the gutter. So I'm excited to see what they can do on Sunday.
Absolutely. These topics and more on From the 80s View. Let's get it. Welcome back to the show. Before we get started, before we bring back our special guest, I'd like to give honor to God, who's the head of my life. For without Him, none of the things that I do would be possible. Not as a father, not as a husband, not as a professional. So I always want to make sure that I give honor to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Now let's welcome back our special guest, Dr. Hayden Coombs. Dr. Coombs is a former featured columnist, NBA draft with Bleacher Report. He's a former copy editor, journalist, and manager at the BYU Idaho. A former editor in chief at the Utah Journal of Communication. A former assistant director of strategic communication at SUU Athletics, Southern Utah Athletics, and he is a current assistant professor of sports management at SUU. Dr. Coombs, my brother, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So, Dr. Coombs, you and I have established a really not only a collegial but a familial relationship, right? You are a big part of what goes on with the student athletes and the students at SUU. Tell everybody a little bit about your journey, Dr. Coombs, and where you started at and how you came through and where you at right now.
Yeah, so I kind of got my start in sports through sports media. Growing up, all I cared about was basketball, and unfortunately, I wasn't good enough to keep playing after high school. But that desire and that passion never went away. So it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, but I just knew no matter what it was, I had to be involved with sports, or else I wouldn't be happy. Eventually, I landed an internship with bleacherreport.com. This was back in like 2011, basically just like writing blog posts and um, just whatever story they assigned to me. And when my internship was done, they asked me to stay on as part of their NBA draft team. And that was just dream come true for me because,
Dream,
yeah, the NBA draft, that is like Christmas in the Coombs household. My
right?
brothers come in from out of states and we buy all the chicken wings up and like it is all we do that day. It's my favorite day of the year. And so I spent a few years, 4 years, right? 11, 12, 13, 14 drafts I covered. So just like writing draft profiles, like strengths, weaknesses, things like that.
Sure.
And as fun as that was, um, if I kept kind of working my way up with Bleacher Report, I just see my family less and less. And this is
Oh,
the same time that my wife and I had our first, and suddenly it wasn't so fun to, just watch college basketball all the time. And uh,
sure.
I just hated being away from my baby. And so I started looking for other things, and I didn't really have any connections to Southern Utah University, but I saw a job on the NCAA market one day as I was actually started as the fundraising assistant, so working in development, and I just applied for it, and next thing I knew, I was getting interviewed, and so I ran over to the communication department and interviewed with them to see if I could get into their master's program, and I worked for SU Athletics for a few years, and it was a great experience. I absolutely hated working in development because asking people for money is the most uncomfortable thing in the world for me.
Right, right.
And after we had the AD who hired me, Ken Beezer, he was a great guy, and he kind of sat me down one day and was like, "What do you want to do? Do you want to be an AD? Then you need to be in development." So I was sticking it out, and about the same time, I started teaching as an adjunct, teaching journalism courses
Hmm.
for the school, and man, I would come to work and that's all I could think about. Even if I just had one class, I just couldn't wait for my next course that I'd be able to teach. And so um, Ken ended up leaving SUU. We got a new AD, and I went to him and I was like, listen, teaching is what I'm going to do. So until I get my master's and they can actually hire me full time, how about you just stick me in sports info because that's the world I know. And so I really just kind of did that on an interim basis
Yeah,
until the communication department at SUU hired me full time, and we were able to train up my replacement. And um, the great thing about SCU is it's a small school with limited resources, and so I get to still be a member of the team while not being a member of the team. And
absolutely.
they're really gracious and cool about letting me just drop by whenever I want, say what's up. Like I don't think I could get that in any other university.
Absolutely. And you do so many things, Dr. Coombs. You host, you are the MC at a lot of things like our pre gymnastics event with with the flipping birds. You come in, you MC that, and the birdies and things like that, the SUU athletics version of the ESPYs, and you've been affiliated with that. So you do so many things. And what I wanted to ask you in our first topic, Dr. Coombs, is what, in your opinion, what is sport management? What is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think sports management is a term that kind of encompasses the entire field of sports studies and these new careers in sports, right? But it's a really diverse field because you have, strategic communications, media relations, you have compliance, you have facilities management, you have, gosh, everything that you do with administration, and the list goes on and on, all the way to ticketing, marketing, right? And so it really is a really broad term. Lately, I've noticed in the field the term sports management, it seems like they're almost kind of gearing it more towards professional sports and then
Hmm.
using the term athletic administration for collegiate and community sports.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's this huge umbrella of all of us who have always wanted to
Yeah.
make a career out of sports but didn't get to play professionally.
Right. And you teach there in sport management as an assistant professor. I've had the privilege to come in and sit in your class and be a guest speaker in your class. What are some of the things that you are talking to your students about, Dr. Coombs, as they aspire and ascend to be a part of that sport management industry?
Well, I kind of have two messages when I go and talk to these kids. The first one is in 2023, sports were a $523 billion industry, which makes the sports industry the largest branch of the entertainment industry. And where I spent the first 5 years of my teaching career teaching journalism, where I'm just like fighting tooth and nail to get these kids an entry level job. And as soon as they get that job, they realize how little it pays. And the running joke I always had for them was go enjoy being a journalist for a few years before you go to law school and become a lawyer. And it was It's just so
That's a
different
good one,
where
Doc.
it's just so different where, the journalism industry is going one way, and then suddenly I'm able to switch into sports, and it's just the exact opposite. It's just booming. And so the one of the stats I have for these kids is this Statista um, study about the field, and it shows like by the time you guys graduate, so around like 2027,
Hmm.
2028,
Yep.
it's expected to be over a $600 billion industry. And I promise you, there is 50 to $100,000 salary in there for you guys.
To
Like
go around for
you can get
everybody to
there.
get a piece of the pie.
That's right. There's money in there for you guys. And man, it's really been the case where it seems like every day I get a call from a student or a former student that's like, oh, I'm doing this now, or I just got this job. We just had a student yesterday. I won't share her news, but she got a big job. And it's just like, man, it's unreal to see how this industry is just booming and all these students are just getting these awesome jobs and passing me like straight out of the gate, like, anything that I
Right.
did.
Right.
And it's great for me as the teacher because that's one more person that I can call in a favor and be like, hey, need a guest lecturer today, need you to hop on Zoom. But
Exactly.
it's been,
But Dr. Coombs, you are a coach. You are a coach of the students that are in your sport management program, right? So
yeah,
you are, you're preparing them, like we do when we watch film, right?
yeah,
You are preparing them when a coach will bring in someone, a motivational speaker, to talk to the team about their journey during the season, right? And I've seen it, and there's several individuals that are in athletics that have come and done that very thing with you. So, Dr. Coombs, you've been now in sport management, right? You have been and basically still are in sport administration, right? What do you think? What would you tell our viewers is the difference between sport management and sport administration?
I would say sports management focuses more on the business of sports, a lot more for profit, public sector, and then sports administration, athletic administration. That's more focused on the nonprofit sector, um, and amateur athletics.
Yeah, yeah. And you've been an SID, a sports information director, right?
Yes,
What
sir.
does that job look like, and what does it entail? Like, and I know you're going to say it's one of the most unappreciated jobs in athletic administration.
Yeah.
And you're right. But what does that look like, Doc?
Um, Man, I loved my time as an SID. I worked with an awesome team and really talented people. But when I tell you, I got out of journalism because I wasn't spending enough time with my family. Being an SID just made that problem even worse, man. There are no regular hours. So anytime I have a student who comes to me and is like, I really want to be an SID, I want to work in sports info. I'm like, all right, well, it is the perfect job for someone that's single. So let's get you started before you find a spouse. Because
Right. Strap it up. Let's go.
oh man, you're just in the trenches, you know. One of the things that I think made me successful in that role was problem solving. There's nothing worse than going to your AD or your supervisor and saying, we have these problems, right? You never bring your higher ups problems, you bring them solutions.
Solutions,
So
exactly.
you're I never once went to Ken or Jason or Debbie and said, "Hey, these are things that we can't do." It's, "Hey, these are some problems we've run into. Do you want me to do A, B, or C?"
Right.
Right?
Here are the
And so,
solutions to those. Absolutely.
um, that's just essential in sports info. But at the end of the day, like you are getting paid to watch games, and no matter what the hours are, the you know 2 a.m. text messages from the soccer coach who says you statted this wrong or did that wrong. You're getting paid to watch a game, and that is the most blessed life in the
Yeah.
world.
and tell a narrative, right? And so
Yeah,
the fans and the parents and the grandparents that weren't there, they could read about it and as if they were there. Hey,
building the
Doc,
brand.
stay with me because we're going to come back and we have something even more exciting to talk about when we come back. So you are watching From the 80s View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. We will be right back after this break.
Renting is everything. It's style at your doorstep, off the runway, and into your closet. It's every trend you've been dying to try, and every designer you've yet to discover. It's wearing it your way every time, and making it count everywhere you go. It's never worrying about what to wear, because something new is always coming your way. That's why renting is everything. New styles, top designers, all for a flat monthly fee. Start your subscription at renttherunway.com.
Slow roasted over hickory fire and pulled by hand. This is the way pit pork has always been done. Pulled pork lovers, rejoice. The smoky old days are back at the Smoke Shack. From the creative team that brought you The Browning Project and Dead by Morning comes a new thriller that will change the way you look at white-collar crime forever. Falling from the Sky.
Water. It's everywhere. We drink it, we bathe with it, we cook with it. Coffee's made with water. Toilets won't flush without it. It's used for washing clothes, dishes, utensils, pots, pans, floors, and our teeth. Plants and crops need water, animals drink it, and fish need it too. And don't forget, we can have a lot of fun in the water. Water. What will we do without it?
Welcome back. You're watching From the 80s View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. Before we bring back our special guest, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my book, How Black Men Overcome Racial Barriers and the Status Quo in NCAA Institutions. It's a narrative inquiry. Had an opportunity to speak to several sitting and retired ADs in Power Five institutions. And out of all of the narratives and the semi-structured interviews that I was able to conduct, came up with the fact that the individuals that were mentors, right, they had a specific way of teaching their mentees, and it was just about understanding how African American men achieved leadership roles at that level, right? Not what negative things happen, but positive things. And the three themes that came out of that were the benefits of the role model's expectations, and then if there were perceived barriers or real barriers, how they help them overcome those barriers. And you can purchase my book on Amazon.com. Again, the title is How Black Men Overcome Racial Barriers and the Status Quo in NCAA Institutions. And again, you can pick that up on Amazon.com. If you'd like to see past episodes of From the 80s View, go to my website at cedricmbrown.org. If you'd like to learn more about the different services that I provide, go on that website, cedricmbrown.org, and you can look at that. And then if you'd like to be a guest on our show, I'd love to have you on the show because I like to get different viewpoints on From the 80s View. And you can go to cedricandbrown.org to email me and then get in contact with me, and we can talk about that. But let's bring back our guest, Dr. Hayden Coombs. Dr. Coombs, it is about to be football Sunday, right?
Sir.
And it is going to be exciting. Let me get some of my notes here, Doc, because I know we talked about it. It's going to be exciting. We have AFC Championship between the Chiefs and the Ravens, right? Mahomes is 3-1 against Lamar Jackson, right? Lamar Jackson this year has 4 games that he's beaten teams by more than 14 points, but Mahomes has only been beaten by 14 points 4 times in his whole career, right? What do you think about that matchup, Doc?
I mean, I think it's probably the most exciting matchup that the playoffs could have produced for us in terms of quarterbacks, right? Yeah, definitely the 2 most dynamic players at the position. And you have Kansas City, who's just been tearing through the league for years now, right? Looked like that unstoppable force, but I just will never forget what I watched on Christmas Sunday and how the Ravens just handled the Niners, who coming into that week, I was like, oh, the Niners got this in the bag.
Right.
So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a good game.
It is. The Chiefs are looking to have their 4th Super Bowl appearance in 5 seasons, right? The Ravens, for the first time ever, are hosting an AFC Championship game, right? Everybody thought the Dolphins were going to be that squad, but they had to go to Kansas City and play in a little thing that they called ice and snow and below 40-degree weather. So the Miami teams that, we're in the sun, we're in the fun, we got this, and now they go into some real weather outdoors and had to play, and they got beat 26-7, right? And then in that divisional round, Texans, a great Cinderella story, right? New coach, coach does a good job turning the Texans around. Ravens thump them 34-10, right? And then that one that we saw last week with the Bills and the Chiefs, right? That big boy that played at Wyoming, and he's a linebacker playing quarterback, right? So what were your thoughts about last week Bills Chiefs?
So my older brother was a big Bills fan when we were growing up. He's the only one I knew. And man, I wanted it for him so bad. I thought, man, this has got to be the year that Josh Allen finally beats Mahomes and advances through the playoffs. But and obviously the game was an insane, super intense, a lot of fun. I always hate to see a game end on, a made or a missed field goal. I want to see those boys just lay it all out on the field,
Absolutely.
But Buffalo's got they've got some tough decisions this offseason. If they can't come back with the same squad they did.
No,
they're getting old fast, and so they're kind of like the anti-Green Bay right now, where they're right there, but Buffalo's getting older, so they've got to find something new. Or Green Bay just going to ride this out for the next 4 or 5 years,
Absolutely. And then we have the ultimate Cinderella story with the Detroit Lions, right?
Yes, sir.
Coach Campbell has resurrected the Detroit Lions, 12-5, same record as the San Francisco 49ers, right?
Yeah.
Last time that the Lions won back-to-back playoff games was 1957. It's been 32 years, 1991, since they've been in the playoffs, right? And then you have the 49ers, 3rd straight NFC championship. Something's got to give, Dr. Coombs. What are your thoughts? Something's got to give, man.
I mean, I'm a journalist, so I love a good story, There wouldn't be anything cooler than seeing the Lions make it, because I've just never experienced the Lions as a good franchise in my entire life,
Right.
And so, that being said, man, the Niners have so many weapons, and you look at someone like Fred Warner, who's at a position that is basically considered, not as important. And,
Yep.
linebackers are pretty expendable these days, but he single-handedly makes that position important and makes that defense go. I just, like I said, other than Christmas Day, watching that game, I just haven't seen anyone be able to consistently put points and yards up against the Niners. And so it's hard for me to bet against them. But I mean, just the story of the Lions and how Jared Goff was essentially brought in as a placeholder until they found their guy. And
Absolutely.
he's got them in the NFC Championship. And I think people forget that he's played in the Super Bowl before.
He has.
And so he's an underrated QB. And so it's going to be a fun game. I think low key I'm kind of pulling for the Lions, but I won't be upset either way.
Sure. And, the Lions beat the Rams, right? So the guy that was at the Lions, now at the Rams, and Goff put him out 24-23, and that reception back for the quarterback as he came back into play, they almost booed him out of the stadium.
Yeah. It was some nice redemption for him, but once again, the Rams did get a Super Bowl out of that trade, so I think
They
they're
did.
okay.
They did. They'll take that. And then in that divisional round, right, you had the 49ers that beat a Jordan Love Packer program that is somebody that you're going to have to the NFC is going to have to deal with the Packers in years to come, right? 24-21, and the Packers had an opportunity to win that ball game, right? They had an opportunity to win that ball game. And then, the Lions, playing the Bucks, we thought that it was going to, I didn't think it was going to be like that, right? Because 31-23 wasn't really indicative of the game as it was. They came and put a thrashing on the Bucks early on. So what are you thinking about that NFC matchup right now with a very successful seasoned 49er squad, right? I think that Dan Campbell's going to have those Lions roaring, man. I think he's going to have them ready. Will it be a surprise if the Detroit Lions beat the 49ers at San Francisco?
Yeah, I think it would be a surprise. But that being said, you know what it's like playing when you feel disrespected, And Dan Campbell's
Absolutely.
telling them, no one thought we'd be here. No one thinks we're going to win this game. No one
It's
thought
just
we were going
us.
to win 10, So they're going to come back. You said you used the perfect word there. They're going to be roaring. They are going to be so hyped and fired up. And it's really kind of a tale of two teams where you kind of have Jared Goff, who's putting up these huge numbers, and everyone else, versus the Niners, who they just seem stacked at every position, yet Brock Purdy's still trying to establish himself as a legitimate star, And so it's going to be interesting to watch that game. But I mean, you mentioned the Packers, like what was the youngest team in NFL playoff history?
Youngest team in
Man,
NFL.
they're going to be constants, just mainstays for the next 5, 6, 7 years in the playoffs. And one of my buddies is a big Packers fan, and we were texting during the Packers and the Cowboys game because that's who I grew up cheering for.
Yeah,
I was a big Emmitt Smith guy, I mean, like every child of the '90s was. But we were joking about rebuilding, and he said, "Oh, we had our rebuilding season in 1991." And I thought, man, that's such bull crap. You guys just you go from Favre to Rodgers and now Love. Like, man, it's insane.
Exactly.
What a franchise.
That is absolutely amazing what certain franchises can do, right? Because you bring Jordan Love in and he's sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. He's learning, he's growing, and then they do away with Aaron Rodgers, basically. I mean, he wanted to get away from them as well. And now, Jordan Love is like, hey, this is my thing. It's my team. He's the leadership that he's uh, exhibiting for a young guy. The veterans are jumping on that ship and allow him to guide that ship and everything. But as we close, Dr. Coombs, tell me, sir, what does faith or spiritualness mean to you, sir?
Yeah. So for me, faith, I bring it back to the good book, Hebrews 11:1. Says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So to me, what that means is faith is what fills in all the blanks in my life, right? There's
Hmm.
so many questions and trials and um, just things we'll never have the answers for. Um, we as humans are lacking so much, and my faith is what fills in those cracks. And so I can get out of bed every day and know that good things are coming my way. Without me, that faith of knowing that there's a higher power, there is someone very real looking over my shoulder, helping direct my life, helping make sure my kids are going to be okay at school. It's just something that I couldn't operate my life without.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I wanted to make sure that I let everybody know that Dr. Coombs and I are both Duke fans, and we host Clemson today at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ESPN. So check out our Dukies as we get this thing done. We might be number 12 or 14 in the country right now, but we'll end up being in Phoenix for that magical Final Four. Ain't that right, Dr. Coombs?
No doubt. We're going to be mobbing down there in Phoenix. That's only like a 6.5 hour drive for us. So.
That's it, baby. And we'll be down there mobbing down there in Phoenix watching those Dukies do their thing. Hey, Doc, if anybody wanted to get in contact with you, man, if somebody wants to get in the sport management program, how can they get in contact with you, sir?
Yeah, if it's a school related question, hit me up. My email is just haydencoombs@scu.edu. For any other networking, I'm on LinkedIn. I probably spend the most time on Twitter or X, and I'm just at Hayden Coombs.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, Dr. Coombs, it was a pleasure talking to you, man. People don't understand. I get to talk to you a lot, during the course of, days and weeks and things like that. But having you one-on-one, getting to chop it up with you and talk shop, man, I really appreciate you. And please tell your queen, thank you for allowing me to share your time with you today.
Hey, it was all my pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Hey, as we close this show, I'd like to thank Dr. Coombs for his time today. He drops nuggets. If you want to be a part of sport management and that's important to you, please reach out to Dr. Coombs. And as he said, his email for the school is haydencoombs@suu.edu. And as we close, I'd like to talk a little bit about relationships, right? Relationships you see each week on the show, Sunday nights at 6:40 Central, 7:40 Eastern. You see me talk to my colleagues, my friends, family members about different things that are going on in their lives, that are going on in the industry that I'm in, athletics, that are going on in entertainment. We talk about faith. And it's all about relationships, right? As you continue to build relationships with individuals, your life can only become more enhanced, right? If you hang around good people, good things happen to you. If you aspire to be a rich or wealthy person, if you hang around rich and wealthy people, the more likely there's a more likelihood that those things are going to come to you, right? But I behoove everyone, all of my viewers, to think about that. Relationships are very, very important. And the better that you can be at building and nurturing those relationships, the better off you'll be. Thank you for watching From the AD's View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. Good night and God bless.